The first time my mother called me a parasite in front of everyone, my grandfather did not flinch. He just lifted his mug, looked straight at me, and blinked once like he was marking the moment. My name is Genevieve. I am 28, and I design brand identities for small companies that cannot afford to waste $1. I build trust for strangers for a living. Yet I could not buy a single ounce of it inside my own family. We were snowed in at my family's place outside Jackson Hole, the kind of timber lodge that smells like cedar and money. The windows sweated from the heat, and the fireplaces made the whole room glow like a magazine ad. My mother, Sloane, sat at the head of the dining table in a cream cashmere sweater, polished and cold. My stepfather, Grant, swirled bourbon in a crystal glass like he was auditioning for a commercial. And my grandfather, Dashiell, sat slightly apart in his old leather chair, a blanket over his knees, his hands thin and spotted with age. Everyone treated him like furniture now, something expensive that nobody asked permission to move. Dinner was ending when he cleared his throat. "I want to give each of you something," he said softly. My mother's eyes sharpened. My older brother, Reed, sat up as if a string pulled him. My cousin, Calla, who lived off my mother's orbit, leaned forward with a hungry smile. Dashiell held out 3 envelopes. Reed ripped his open first. Calla did the same. I waited, because waiting was the only survival skill I was ever praised for. When my envelope reached my hands, it felt too light to matter. Inside was a check, $25,000. For a full second, the number did not register. My brain tried to reject it, like my eyes were making up a fantasy to protect me. Then my mother laughed. It was not a warm laugh. It was the kind of laugh that makes people on the other end of a phone call feel small without knowing why. "Please," she said, and her voice sliced through the crackle of fire. "Do not look so desperate, Genevieve. You are embarrassing yourself." My cheeks burned. The room felt suddenly too bright. Before I could even fold the check back into the envelope, she reached across the table and plucked it right out of my fingers. "Dad," she said, waving it like trash. "Are we doing this again? These are from that old account you closed years ago. You cannot keep teasing them like this." Reed smirked. "It is his favorite hobby," he said, "messing with people." Then he stood up, walked to the stone fireplace, and tossed his check into the flames like a napkin. The paper curled. The ink blackened. The fire ate it like it was nothing. Calla clapped and followed, giggling as hers vanished too. My mother stared at me, daring me to copy them. My throat tightened. I could hear my heartbeat against my ribs. I looked at my grandfather. He looked frail, small, almost lost. But then he lifted his eyes to mine, and for the smallest moment, the corner of his mouth pulled up. A tiny sign, a private signal, like a green light in a storm. I did not argue. I did not cry. I did not ask why she touched what was mine. I simply reached to the table where she had tossed my check down like a coaster, picked it up, folded it neatly, and slipped it into my pocket. My mother's lips curled. "There you go," she said. "Always saving scraps, like it makes you independent." I kept my face still. Inside, something sharp woke up. Because the truth was, I had been independent for years. I just never got credit for it. I had built my life out of cheap groceries, late invoices, and the kind of exhaustion that makes you feel like a ghost. I lived in a tiny studio in Boise because it was what I could afford while paying off school loans. My clients were dentists and realtors, and one woman who sold handmade soap online. I was the person who made their businesses look legitimate. Meanwhile, my family told everyone at parties that I did little art stuff on the computer. I excused myself after dinner and walked upstairs, the lodge quieting behind me. My room was perfect and sterile. White duvet, thick curtains, a bowl of decorative pine cones on the dresser. I pulled the check out and laid it on the nightstand. $25,000. If it was fake, it was cruel. If it was real, it was dangerous. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Reed's check curling in the fire. The way he enjoyed it. The way my mother watched me like she wanted me to flinch. At dawn, the mountains outside were pale and hard, the snow tinted lavender by early light. I got dressed without making noise. Jeans, boots, a plain sweater. I slipped out before anyone woke up, took my car, and drove into town. The bank was warm and overly quiet, with soft music and the smell of carpet cleaner. I stood in line behind a man depositing a stack of cash, my fingers numb even though my hands were in my pockets. When it was my turn, I slid the check across the counter to the teller. She was a woman with tired eyes and perfect nails. Her name tag said Marlowe. "I need to verify this," I said. She looked at the check, then at me, like she had seen this exact moment play out in 100 different ways. She typed, She paused. She typed again. My stomach folded in on itself. I waited for the smile, the pity, the laugh. Instead, she nodded once. It clears, Marlo said calmly. Funds are available immediately. Do you want it deposited? My lungs forgot how to work. Yes, I whispered, and my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. She stamped it. She turned the screen slightly so I could see the updated balance. My own small savings sat there, a sad little number I protected like a secret. And now, layered on top of it was his gift, $25,000. Real. I walked out with a receipt in my hand and sat in my car in the parking lot. The steering wheel felt cold under my palms. For a long minute, I just stared at the paper like it might vanish if I blinked. I did not feel joy. I felt clarity because my family did not throw away real money. They threw away my money. I knew that the way you know a bruise, you keep pressing. My mother had always had a story for why I could not have what was supposedly mine. When I was 21, I asked for help replacing my laptop after it died mid-semester. She told me struggle builds character. A month later, she paid for Reed to fly to Miami for a networking weekend that turned into photos of him on a yacht. When I asked about my grandmother's trust, the one I had been told about since childhood, my mother would tilt her head and sigh like I was exhausting. It is protected, she would say. It is managed. You are not ready. You make emotional decisions. You do not think long term. It was her favorite sentence. You are not ready. And I believed it longer than I want to admit. Because believing her was easier than admitting she could steal from me and still sleep at night. Back at the lodge, I did not go inside through the main entry. I walked around the side path where the snow was packed down, past the garage with the heated driveway, to the smaller guest house set behind the trees. That was my grandfather's space when he wanted quiet. My mother complained it smelled like books and old dog, which was why she rarely stepped inside. The door was unlocked. I found him in the study, sitting by the window with a cardigan over his shoulders, watching snow fall like ash. He did not look confused now. He looked like a man waiting for a report. You went to the bank, he said without turning. It cleared, I replied. He nodded slowly, as if checking off a box. You kept it, he murmured. Good. My chest tightened. Why did you do that? I asked. Why hand them checks at all? He finally turned, and his eyes were sharper than they had been at dinner. Because they are careless when they feel superior, he said. And because I needed to know if you would follow the crowd into the fire. I swallowed. They think you are losing it. He gave a dry smile. They want me to be losing it. The air in the room felt heavy, with something unspoken. I pulled the receipt from my pocket and set it on the desk. He glanced at it, then back at me. You know about the trust, he said. It was not a question. My hands curled into fists before I could stop them. I think it is gone, I said, and hearing it out loud made my throat burn. I think they have been spending it. My grandfather exhaled, slow and controlled, like he was holding back anger for my sake. Your grandmother left you money, he said. A lot. It was meant to transfer at 25. Your mother told me you delayed it. She showed me documents, emails, signatures. I never delayed anything, I said, and my voice came out hard. I never signed anything. He nodded again, like he expected that answer. I believe you, he said, but belief is not enough. If I accuse them without proof, they will do what they have been planning for months. My stomach dropped. Power of attorney. He watched my face. Yes, outside, snow tapped softly against the window. In the quiet, I could hear the lodge in the distance, faint laughter, the muffled sound of my family moving on without me. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text from my mother. Where are you? Reed needs you to fix the visuals for his investor call. Stop being dramatic. I stared at the message. My throat tightened the way it always did. That old reflex. The panic of being cut off, of being punished. My grandfather leaned forward. They still own you with fear, he said gently. But they cannot if you choose not to be owned. I licked my lips. They pay my phone bill, I said automatically. They helped with my lease. They can ruin me. He pointed at the receipt. You have enough to breathe now, he said. More than enough to stop crawling. Something in me shifted. Not bravery, not confidence. Just exhaustion turning into a decision. My grandfather reached for the phone on his desk. I am going to bait them, he said. I am going to offer them what they want. Early transfer, estate control, all of it. My pulse jumped. They will jump on it. That is the point, he said. But the lawyer will require documentation, a clean trail, and they will panic. I stared at him. They will forge it. His eyes narrowed. And you will catch them. I almost laughed, but it came out as a shaky breath. I am a designer, I said, not a detective. He held my gaze. You notice what others ignore, he replied. Your mother dismissed your work for years. She never understood that your skill is precision. She never understood that a lie has structure and structure can be examined. I felt a chill crawl up my arms. Then I remembered something. A small, ugly detail from years of being treated like the help. I had set up my family's devices, their cloud storage, their shared drives, their printers, their passwords. They never changed anything because they could not be bothered. My mother still used the same 4-digit PIN for everything, like the world owed her simplicity. My grandfather watched my expression change. You can access what they think is hidden, he said quietly. I nodded once, slow. He dialed my mother on speaker. When she answered, her voice was sweet, almost performative. Dad, are you feeling all right? I have been thinking, my grandfather said, and he made his voice tremble just enough. I do not know how much time I have left. I want to transfer things to you and Grant now. Make it simple. Avoid complications. There was a pause, and I could hear her excitement trying to pretend it was concern. Oh, Dad, she breathed. That is wise. We can come over immediately. Not yet, he said. My attorney wants a clean review first, especially of Genevieve's trust, just a formality. Bring the statements tomorrow at noon. If everything is in order, we will sign. My mother went quiet. It was the kind of quiet that tells you exactly where the fear is hiding. Of course, she said finally, and her voice cracked on the word. We have everything. My grandfather hung up. He looked at me. Now, he said, they will create what they cannot produce. My mouth felt dry. I opened my phone again and saw new texts coming in. Faster now. Come back. This is not funny. You are acting unstable. Do not embarrass me tomorrow. My hands shook, but my voice stayed steady. If I do this, I said, they will hate me. My grandfather's expression softened, almost sad. They already do, he said. They just preferred you useful. I stared at the falling snow, and for a second I felt like I was standing on the edge of something. A cliff, a new life, a grief I could not name. Hold on, tiny break. I read the comments when I am worn out, and seeing your location reminds me I am not telling these stories into an empty room. Like, subscribe and drop your city, state, or country. All right, back to the story. I pulled my laptop from my bag and set it on his desk. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I logged into the family cloud account. The password still worked. Of course it did. The folders loaded, neat and smug. Taxes, contracts, photos, trust. There it was. A folder literally labeled trust. My stomach twisted. Equal parts rage and disbelief. It was empty, not deleted, not missing. Empty like someone had just scrubbed it. Then, as if on cue, a notification popped up at the corner of my screen. New file added. Then another and another. They were uploading in real time. I watched the names appear. One by one, like footsteps in a hallway at night. Statement template, trust summary draft, final statement. My skin went cold. They were not bringing records tomorrow. They were building a costume to wear in front of the lawyer. My grandfather said nothing. He just watched my face, and I could tell he was measuring how much truth I could take at once. The last file appeared at 11:47 p.m. Trust statement final. I clicked download. The file hit my desktop with a soft sound that felt louder than the fireplace ever had. I opened it. The page looked perfect to anyone who wanted to believe. A bank logo, a balance, clean columns, official formatting. A neat, comforting number that said I was safe. I leaned closer to the screen, and my breath caught as the document loaded fully. Because right there, in the bottom corner, the metadata panel flickered into view, and the author name that appeared made my hands go completely still. The author field read Grant, not my mother. Not my brother, my stepfather. I stared at the screen until my eyes watered, because my brain kept trying to invent another explanation. Maybe it was a shared device name. Maybe he had once opened a file on the wrong laptop. Maybe it was a coincidence, but the timestamp sat right beside it, clean and cruel. Created tonight, modified tonight, exported tonight. My stomach rolled as a memory surfaced, sharp as glass. 2 summers ago, I was at their house in Scottsdale. Grant had leaned over my shoulder while I fixed their printer settings, smelling like expensive cologne and impatience. You know, he said, watching me click through menus, you would do fine in a real career if you stopped chasing feelings. Design is just dressing things up. He had said it like advice. Now I understood what it really was. A confession in disguise. My grandfather spoke softly behind me. Is that what you needed? I did not answer right away. My throat felt too tight, like I had swallowed snow. I need more than a name, I finally said. My voice sounded calm, which surprised me. I need the fingerprints. I clicked into the file properties and forced myself to breathe. My hands were steady now in a way they had never been around my family. Like something inside me had finally accepted the truth and stopped begging it to change. The document was polished. It was meant to soothe. A comfortable balance, neat monthly statements, a clean story. But the formatting was too perfect, like a stage set. Real bank statements have tiny imperfections. Real systems have rules they follow without thinking. This looked like someone who wanted to convince, not someone reporting. I enlarged the header and scanned the typography. The font was close. Too close, like someone who Googled their way into confidence. But the spacing felt wrong. The numbers in the balance column were just slightly off-center, as if the designer had eyeballed it instead of snapping to a grid. I opened the file in my editing software, not to change anything, just to examine. I zoomed in until the pixels were visible. There it was, the baseline shift. The tiniest wobble in the alignment, a few pixels that would not bother anyone who did not live inside margins and grids for a living. I looked up at my grandfather and felt a strange, bitter laugh rise in me. They never respected my work, I said quietly. So they never learned what it can do. He nodded once. Keep going. I clicked the metadata tab again and copied every detail into a separate report. Device model, application used, date created, account name, even the export settings. Then I did something I would not have dared before. I checked the activity log. The cloud account tracked uploads and edits. It recorded which device added each file. It recorded the IP location. It recorded the exact minute a file appeared. And there, under the trust statement, sat the trail like footprints in fresh snow, uploaded from Grant's laptop. My skin went cold all over. I scrolled further down and found the earlier files they had uploaded first. Templates, drafts, a spreadsheet, and then my heart stopped because one of the file names was not about the trust statement at all. Transfer instruction. I clicked it. It was a scanned form, slightly crooked, with signatures placed too neatly, like stickers. I recognized my name in the signature line, but it was not my signature. It was my name, written by someone who had watched me sign enough birthday cards to mimic the shape. I leaned back so hard my chair scraped the floor. My grandfather's voice came from far away. They forged you. I swallowed hard. They have been forging me, I whispered. For years. I zoomed in on the signature. The loops were wrong. The pressure was wrong. It looked like my name, but it did not feel like my hand. I had always thought my mother's control was emotional. That she owned me with guilt and fear, and that word, selfish. But this was different. This was paperwork, systems, banks, legal lines that turn people into numbers. This was not family dysfunction. This was theft with a letterhead. I printed the metadata report to PDF, then saved the original files to an external drive. I saved copies to a private encrypted folder. I exported screenshots of the activity log showing upload times and device names. I did not trust anything that could be deleted. Not anymore. My grandfather watched without interrupting, like he had learned long ago that silence sometimes is the kindest support. When I finished, I sat back and stared at the snow outside his window. It fell softly, endlessly, like the world was trying to cover every ugly thing. What do you feel? He asked. I could have said anger. I could have said grief. I could have said relief, but the truth was uglier. I feel stupid, I said, and my voice cracked. Because I defended them. I defended my mother. I told myself she was harsh because she wanted me strong. I told myself Reed was spoiled because he was insecure. I told myself Grant was cold because he was practical. My grandfather's eyes sharpened. You were not stupid. You were trained. That word hit me like a slap. Trained. Yes, like a dog taught to flinch when the leash moves. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. Like my mother could sense I was breathing without her permission. I turned it on just long enough to see the new message, and my stomach clenched. If you show up tomorrow and embarrass us, I will cancel your lease. I will cut your phone. I will tell everyone you are unstable. You will be alone. I stared at those words until the letters blurred. Then I turned the phone off again. My grandfather leaned forward. They are terrified, he said. And terrified people get sloppy. That is why tomorrow matters. I looked at the files one more time, then at him. What if the lawyer sides with them? I asked. What if he thinks I am just bitter? What if he thinks you are confused? My grandfather's mouth tightened. Sterling will not risk his license on their performance. He is not sentimental. The name landed like a weight. Sterling, a real person, a real office, real consequences. My mind flashed to my mother's smile at dinner, the way she waved my check like trash. She did not just believe she was untouchable. She believed the world was built to protect her. I knew that belief. I had lived under it my entire life. I stood. Then we do not just show him the file, I said. We show him the trail. My grandfather's eyes brightened slightly. Good. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small key. This opens my safe, he said. Inside is the original trust paperwork your grandmother signed. The one your mother was never meant to control. I took the key with careful fingers. It felt heavy, simple, final. He continued, when they arrive tomorrow, they will try to dominate the room. They will speak for you. They will speak over you. They will try to frame you as emotional. I swallowed. I am emotional. You are human, he corrected. But do not perform it for them. I nodded slowly, feeling my spine straighten. The fear was still there, but it had changed shape. It was not fear of them anymore. It was fear of what this would cost me. Because a part of me, a soft, stupid part, still wanted my mother to love me, not the way she did, with strings and insults, the real way. The way daughters dream of when they are little. I hated that part of me for existing, and I knew my mother would use it if I showed it. That night, I did not sleep in the lodge. I stayed in the guest house with my grandfather. He insisted, and for once I did not argue. He gave me the couch, a thick blanket that smelled like laundry soap and old memories. I lay there listening to the house settle, the faint creaks and pops of wood in cold weather. I watched the shadows shift from the firelight in the study. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps, soft, careful, not my grandfather. My whole body went still. The doorknob turned, slow. For a second, panic surged so hard my vision narrowed. Then the door opened and my grandfather stood there, holding his cane, his eyes sharp in the dim light. It is just me, he said quietly. I exhaled shaky. He sat in the chair across from me. They may come here, he said. They may try to get to me before morning. If they do not engage, do not argue, document everything. Let them speak. Let them hang themselves. I nodded. He watched me for a long beat. Genevieve, he said, and his voice softened. Your mother will weaponize your love tomorrow. She will act hurt. She will act betrayed. She will cry if she needs to. I felt my throat tighten again. She never cries. He gave a small, sad smile. She does when she thinks it will work. The next morning, the sky was steel gray, and the snow came down harder, blowing sideways. My grandfather and I drove into town early, leaving the lodge quiet behind us. My hands shook on my coffee cup, but my mind stayed clear. Sterling and his firm occupied the 3rd floor of a brick building on the corner of the main street, above a boutique and a coffee shop. The lobby smelled like polished wood and money trying to be subtle. Inside the conference room, everything was glass, dark leather, and clean lines. The kind of room designed to make people feel small so they agree faster. Sterling himself was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with calm eyes and a voice that sounded like it never raised itself because it never had to. He greeted my grandfather first, respectfully, then looked at me. You are Genevieve, he said. Yes, I replied. He gestured to the chair nearest the screen. You will want to sit there. My mouth went dry. You believe me? He did not answer directly. I believe in evidence, he said. We waited. At exactly noon, the door opened. My mother walked in like she owned the building. Grant followed, coat still dusted with snow, jaw tight. Reed came behind them, phone in hand, already annoyed, like this meeting was interrupting his life. My mother's eyes flicked to me and narrowed. Then she smiled, sweet as poison. There you are, she said. We have been worried sick. You disappeared. And Dad, darling, you should not be out in weather like this. My grandfather's hands trembled slightly as he sat. He played the part perfectly. Sterling motioned to the folder in my mother's hands. The trust statements. Grant set the binder on the table with a heavy thud, as if weight equaled truth. My mother leaned towards Sterling, her voice low and confident. Everything is in order, she said. She just gets emotional. You know how artistic people are. Reed snorted softly. I felt my pulse in my ears, but I kept my face neutral. Sterling looked at my grandfather. How would you like to proceed? My grandfather lifted his chin, his voice wavering just enough to look frail. Large, he said. On the screen, my eyes are not what they used to be. Grant's gaze slid to me, impatient. She can do it, he said, like I was a remote control. I stood, carried my laptop to the table, and connected it to the display. My mother watched my hands like she expected me to fumble. I did not. The document appeared on the screen, bright and convincing. My mother exhaled with relief, as if the sight alone was proof. Then she turned that relief into cruelty. See, she said, looking at me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Everything you have ever accused us of is in your head. I looked at Sterling. I looked at my grandfather. Then I looked back at my mother and spoke calmly. Before we discuss the numbers, I said, I want to discuss how this document was made. Grant's shoulders stiffened. My mother's smile faltered for half a second. Sterling leaned back slightly, eyes sharpening, and I clicked open the metadata panel. Grant made a small sound in his throat, like a warning disguised as a cough. My mother shifted in her chair, smoothing her sleeve even though it was already perfect. Reed stopped scrolling on his phone, finally paying attention. Sterling's gaze flicked from the screen to me. "Go on," he said, calm, curious. I clicked once and the details filled the display in a neat panel. Created last night. Exported last night. Author, Grant. The room went quiet in the way. A room goes quiet right before a glass hits the floor. My mother recovered first. She laughed softly, like she could laugh facts into disappearing. "That proves nothing," she said. "Grant opened the file, that's all. We were up late organizing documents for your grandfather because we care." Grant's jaw clenched. "This is ridiculous," he said. "She's twisting technical nonsense because she wants attention." Reed leaned back and smirked. "Genevieve, you really think you're Sherlock because you can zoom in on fonts?" I did not look at him. I kept my eyes on Sterling, because Sterling was the only person in this room my mother could not bully. "It's not just the author field," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "It's the activity log, the upload time, the device ID, the application used to export, and the files you uploaded before this one." My mother's smile thinned. "Enough," she snapped, the mask slipping for a heartbeat. Then she softened again, like flipping a switch. "Honey, you're spiraling, you didn't sleep. You're embarrassed about last night and now you're trying to punish us. This is not the place." That sentence landed exactly where she wanted it to. Right in the soft part of me that still wanted her approval. But something in me had changed. The moment I saw my forged signature, my need for her love started to feel like a bad habit I could finally break. I clicked open the next file. Transfer instruction. The scanned form filled the screen. It looked official at a glance. The kind of paper that steals your life without raising its voice. Sterling's eyes narrowed. "What am I looking at?" "A request to delay distribution," I said. "Supposedly from me." My mother's face tightened. "Because you asked us to," she said quickly. "You were overwhelmed. You begged me. You cried on the phone. You said you weren't ready and you didn't want the money to ruin you." The words came out too smooth, too rehearsed. Like she had told herself this story so many times she started believing it. Sterling leaned forward. "And that signature is yours?" he asked me. I zoomed in slowly, until the loops and strokes were huge. "No," I said. "That is my name, but it is not my hand." Grant pushed his chair back half an inch, the legs scraping softly. A nervous sound. My mother's eyes went glossy, right on cue, as if she had a hidden reservoir of tears she saved for emergencies. "This is cruel," she whispered. "After everything I've done for you." There it was, the weapon she always used when logic failed. I felt my chest tighten. For a second, the old fear clawed at me, the fear of being called ungrateful, the fear of being cast out. Then I remembered the check in my pocket from last night, already deposited, already real. My first breath of freedom. I turned slightly and looked at my grandfather. He was sitting straighter now. The tremor in his hands was still there, but his eyes were clear, steady, almost fierce. "Genevieve," Sterling said, "do you have the original documents?" I nodded. I reached into my bag and placed a thick envelope on the table. My grandfather's safe key sat in my palm like a promise, but I had already used it. Last night, after the footsteps and the warning, he had given me access. We opened the safe together. We pulled out the trust paperwork signed by my grandmother. Her ink, her dates, her witness signatures, her intent, written in legal language that did not care about my mother's feelings. Sterling opened the envelope carefully, like it mattered. Because it did. My mother's face changed as soon as she saw the first page. Her eyes sharpened, panic flashing behind them. Grant leaned forward. "Where did you get that?" "My grandfather," I said quietly. "The person it belongs to." My mother's voice rose. "Dad, you gave that to her. You're letting her manipulate you." My grandfather finally spoke, and his voice did not tremble. "No," he said. "I am letting her tell the truth." The room froze again, but this time it froze around my mother, not around me. Sterling flipped through the pages, lips moving as he read. His expression did not change much, but the air in the room did. It shifted toward consequence. "This trust was meant to distribute at 25, Sterling said. "It names Genevieve as beneficiary and restricts management to an independent trustee after your wife's passing." My mother cut in sharply. "We were the independent trustee." Sterling looked at her. "You were not named." Grant's face went pale. Reed sat forward now, all smugness gone. "Wait," he said, and his voice cracked slightly. "What do you mean they weren't named?" My mother shot him a glare that said be quiet, but it was too late. He had smelled danger, and spoiled men panic loudly when they realize the world can say no. Sterling set the papers down. If you were not named trustee, he said, you were not authorized to delay distribution or manage those funds. My mother leaned back, breath sharp. You're misunderstanding, she said, forcing calm. We acted in her best interest. She would have wasted it. She's impulsive. That word again. Impulsive, emotional, unready. Sterling did not react to her tone. He turned to me. You said you have activity logs. Yes, I said. I opened my laptop folder and displayed the cloud audit trail. The timestamps, the device, the upload history. The moment the trust folder was scrubbed, the moment new files appeared, the exact minute Grant's laptop uploaded the final statement. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Grant's hand twitched toward the binder as if he wanted to grab it back. Sterling lifted a finger slightly. Not dramatic, not loud, just enough to stop motion. Do not touch anything, he said. My mother's voice broke into something almost pleading. Sterling, you have known our family for years. This girl is unstable. She always has been. She's dramatic. She makes stories when she feels rejected. It hit me then, crystal clear, that she was not trying to convince him. She was trying to put a label on me that could outlive the evidence. Unstable, the word that gets women dismissed. The word that lets people steal while acting concerned. Sterling glanced at my grandfather. Mr. Fletcher, he said, have you been pressured to sign power of attorney documents? My mother stiffened. Grant's eyes darted. My grandfather folded his hands. Yes, he said calmly. They brought them to me twice. They told me it was for my safety. My mother snapped. Because you forget things. You leave doors unlocked. You can't manage your own medication. My grandfather's gaze did not waver. I left this door unlocked on purpose, he said. My breath caught. My mother stared at him, confused. Sterling's eyes sharpened further. On purpose, he repeated. My grandfather nodded. I wanted to see what they would do when they believed no one was watching, he said. And I wanted Genevieve to see that she was not crazy. Reed's mouth fell open. You set us up, he breathed, looking at my mother like he finally understood she was not just strict, she was dangerous. My mother turned on him instantly. Do not be dramatic, she hissed. We are protecting you too. Protecting, that word. Sterling closed the binder my mother brought with a soft thump. This appears to be forged, he said evenly. And based on the documents provided by Mr. Fletcher, you had no legal authority to manage the trust funds. Grant finally spoke and his voice sounded raw. We borrowed it, he said. It was temporary. My mother whipped her head toward him. Grant, he looked at her, and something ugly passed between them. The silent argument of people who have lied together for too long. Sterling kept his tone neutral. Borrowed, he repeated. From funds that are not yours without authorization. Grant swallowed. Reed needed capital, he said, and his eyes flicked to my brother like it was his last attempt at justification. The market was good. We thought we'd replace it before she noticed. It was an investment. Reed stood so fast his chair slammed back. You used her money, he said, and his voice was loud now, panicked. You told me it was family money. My mother's face went flat. Sit down, she said, cold again. You're making it worse. But he did not sit. He stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time, and I realized he had spent his whole life believing her love was loyalty. Now he was learning it was ownership. Sterling opened a drawer and pulled out a thin folder. I have one more document, he said. Mr. Fletcher asked me to prepare it weeks ago. My mother blinked, thrown off. What? Sterling slid the document across the table toward my grandfather. A revised estate plan, he said. My grandfather did not pick it up immediately. He looked at my mother first, almost gently. Sloane, he said, you mocked my mind at dinner. You mocked Genevieve's worth. You laughed at money you did not earn. My mother's lips trembled. Dad, please. I kept quiet because I wanted you comfortable, he continued. Comfortable people are honest about who they are. He picked up the revised estate plan and signed it with a steady hand. My mother's breath hitched. No, she whispered. Sterling looked at her. This revision includes an ethics clause, he said, plain. Fraud, coercion, or theft voids inheritance. My mother's face drained of color. Grant muttered, Sterling, you can't. Sterling did not even look at him. I can, he said, and I have. My mother stood, her chair scraping loudly. This is a misunderstanding, she said, and her voice rose higher. Genevieve manipulated him. She's always been jealous. She's always been a parasite. The word parasite hit me like it always did. But this time it did not cut. It just exposed her. Sterling's expression did not change. Security, he said into the intercom, calm as ordering coffee. My mother turned to my grandfather, and the desperation finally cracked through the polish. Dad, we are your family. My grandfather's eyes held hers. So was my wife, he said quietly. And you stole from the person she loved most. Grant reached for my mother's elbow, trying to pull her back into control, but security was already at the door. Two men, professional, silent, waiting. My mother looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something in her face that I had never seen before. Fear of irrelevance, fear of losing power. She stepped toward me, voice shaking. Genevieve, she whispered, and for a second she sounded almost human. You don't have to do this. We can fix it. We can talk. We can be a family again. It was almost convincing. Almost. I met her eyes and felt that old ache. The little girl inside me who once begged for kindness. Then I remembered the forged signature, the empty trust folder, the threats, the word unstable waiting to be stamped on my forehead. I leaned slightly closer, just enough for her to hear me and no one else. You told me design wasn't real, I said softly, but it's exactly why you're losing. Her eyes widened, and in that second I knew she understood. Not the emotion, not the betrayal, the math. Security guided them out. My mother tried to twist her body back toward the table like she could still grab control with her nails, but she was escorted into the hallway, her heels clicking too fast, like a metronome counting down. Grant did not fight. He looked hollow, like the moment he confessed. He realized he would never be admired in this family again, only blamed. Reed stood frozen until the door closed. Then he sank back into his chair, palms flat on the table like he needed the wood to keep him from falling. He looked at me, his voice was small. I didn't know. I studied him for a long second. The easy answer would be to hate him. The satisfying answer would be to humiliate him. But revenge is quieter when it is precise. I believe you, I said, because you never asked, you just took. He flinched as if I'd slapped him, and I hated that it still gave me a flicker of satisfaction. Sterling gathered the documents, methodical. We will file a fraud report, he said. We will begin recovery proceedings for the trust funds. And Mr. Fletcher, he looked to my grandfather, I recommend immediate restrictions on account access and a new trustee. My grandfather nodded. Do it. Sterling turned to me. Genevieve, your documentation is thorough. Have you done this kind of analysis before? I hesitated. My life flashed in images. Late nights adjusting kerning for clients who paid late. My mother sneering at my work. Grant calling it dressing things up. I've done it my whole life, I said. I just didn't know it was valuable. Sterling's mouth curved slightly. It is, he said. Outside, the snow had eased. The world looked cleaner than it had an hour ago. In the car, my grandfather sat quietly for a while, hands resting on his cane. You did not cry, he said finally. I wanted to, I admitted. He nodded. You can later, he said, in a place where it is safe. Weeks turned into months, and the legal process moved like winter, slow but unstoppable. Accounts were frozen. Forensic audits uncovered transfers disguised as investments, payments routed through shell LLCs, and emails written in my voice, all traced back to Grant's devices and my mother's instructions. The money did not come back overnight, but it came back in pieces. Each recovered deposit a small correction to the lie I had lived under. My mother tried everything. She sent messages from new numbers. She mailed letters. She left voicemails that switched between sobbing and rage so fast it made my skin crawl. Then she tried the last weapon she had, the one she always used when she wanted to punish silence. She told people I was unstable. Only this time, I had paperwork. I started keeping a file of every lie, every threat, every contradiction, stored neatly the way I stored client brand guidelines. When a family friend called me to ask if I was okay, voice heavy with concern, I did not argue. I just forwarded the audit summary. The calls stopped after that. By late summer, the trust was restored under an independent trustee. My grandfather updated every beneficiary designation. Reed received nothing beyond a small fixed payout with strict conditions. My mother and Grant were cut out entirely, not out of spite, but out of proof. The lodge in Jackson Hole was sold. My grandfather said the walls held too many performances. We bought a smaller place in a quieter town where no one cared what our last name meant. And me, I took the thing my mother mocked and turned it into a weapon for people who needed one. I opened a small firm specializing in document verification and fraud detection for regular people, the ones who get crushed quietly because they do not know what to look for. I built a website that was clean, simple, and honest. My first client was a woman whose ex-husband forged her signature on a mortgage refinance. When she cried in my office after we proved it, I did not feel powerful. I felt useful. On the first Christmas after everything, my grandfather and I cooked dinner together. No chandelier, no crystal, just warm light and a table that did not feel like a battlefield. He slid a small envelope across to me at the end of the meal. I stiffened automatically, old instincts rising. He smiled gently. "It's not a test," he said. Inside was a simple handwritten note. "I am proud of you. Not for winning, for seeing clearly." I stared at the words until my eyes burned. My phone buzzed once, a blocked number slipping through somehow. I looked at the screen. Mother. I did not open it. I did not listen. I did not let her voice back into my bloodstream. I turned the phone face down, took a slow breath, and went back to the kitchen to wash dishes beside the one person in my family who never asked me to burn myself to prove I mattered.